All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another issue of our weekly, what is now weekly webinar series as a part of Jamaica's Technology and Digital Alliance Community Forum. Now, if you recall, for the last few weeks, you have actually been joining us as we've been tackling different aspects of the conversation that has emerged out of the JamCOVID issue. And just a reminder, for those of you who are new to the experience, we have basically been exploring cybersecurity and data privacy as a key component to our digital society being one that is not only successful in its creation, but also secure, and also one that is enrolling the members of our society in a way that is effective, impactful, and serving the community at large. Another significant aspect of this discussion is that we have been doing this ongoing poll, which I will actually bring up a little bit later on in the conversation. But we've been doing this ongoing poll that has been indicating the current level of trust in having our data as citizens of Jamaica, and even internationally, because when the vulnerability happened with JamCOVID, it became a huge deal because of the international or global person's data that was actually a part of the system that was that had this vulnerability exposed. And so last week we actually had some experts come on. We had persons from the US, persons from Europe, as well as persons from the Caribbean that are experts in the space of technology related to cybersecurity and privacy, including a lawyer that was also very versed on all of the laws. And then the week before that, we had local experts, persons that are a part of the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, formerly JCS, who are providers of either software development services or cybersecurity and privacy services. And this week, as we continue the conversation, we're going to now take the academic perspective, because this is probably where it is even most critical in having the discussion. This is the future of our tech professional space. So all those individuals who are in school currently that are aspiring to be a part of this field and aspiring to help to build and sustain our digital society, we want to make sure that they are being enabled and that they have everything that they need to succeed in this particular space. And so we wanted to hear from our academic experts and leaders about what is being taught, what is being done in the space of security and privacy, yes, and also generally in technology and preparing for what we are calling our digital society. So I am joined, and again, guys, I start off talking whole heap and then I just hand it over to the experts, right? So I am joined this evening by 4 experts, academic experts from 4 different universities here in Jamaica. And I'm really excited because all of them are also members of the JCS, now the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance. And they're all very much acclaimed in their own right as academic experts. And at one point I had it in my dream book that I wanted to be a professor. It's still there. So I'm going to just kind of give a very brief highlight of the schools and the persons that we have representing each of the schools joining us tonight. So please feel free to start getting your questions pulled together so that we can ask of our panelists. So joining me this evening, I have 2 lovely ladies, starting off with Dr. Gunjan Mansingh, who is head of computing at University of the West Indies, and she's based in the Mona location. And she also serves as a director on the Council for Jamaica's Technology and Digital Alliance. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mansingh.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you for the welcome.
She's also a senior lecturer. That's another thing, guys, is that one of the things that's also really important, which is why I think having these guys on with us this evening is really cool, is because not only are they heads of departments, but they are also in some instances, lecturers or persons who are actually providing the instructions. I thought that was also key. So Dr. Gunjan Mansingh is a senior lecturer at the Department of Computing as well as head of department. And I'm also joined this evening by Erica Simmons, who is the executive director for the Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing at the Caribbean Maritime University. And thank you so much for joining us, Erica. Awesome, thank you. And then I'm joined by two handsome gentlemen, Dr. Sean Thorpe. I'm not seeing your video just now, Sean. Possibly a technical glitch, but can we hear you at least?
Yes, you can hear me. Yes, a pleasant good afternoon. I'm here. I'm actually here.
Okay, excellent, wonderful. Sean, Dr. Thorpe is a professor and head of School of Computing and Information Technology at the University of Technology in Jamaica. And then I'm also joined by Mr. Damion Mitchell, who is the assistant professor, or is it associate? I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. Assistant professor and chair of the Department of Computing and Information Sciences at Northern Caribbean University, which is a private university in Mandeville, based in Mandeville, Jamaica. So welcome to all my academic
Thank you.
experts. Awesome, thank you for joining.
Thank you, thank you.
And
Yes.
we expect this to be a very live conversation, guys, because we have some very pertinent questions that we want to ask of you and to hear your thoughts, and even areas where you feel that we need to be offering more support, or you need to be getting more support to ensure that we're enabling the future professionals. So let's jump right in. First things first, we want to talk about from where you sit, right? From where you sit in each of your different establishments. Where are the universities currently in providing education around cybersecurity and even data privacy? And when I ask about, where are you currently, I mean, in terms of, are you providing technical or theoretical training, or is it something that's not viewed at, not discussed in depth? If you could just share from each of the schools, just kind of what is happening. And I'd love to take it in the same order that you introduced yourself. So just go ahead, Gunjan, and then everybody else can chime in after that.
Sure, Stacey. A very, very important question, because it comes down to, like, security is not something new in the area of computing. And if you were to even look at curriculum design, and often institutions like ours, we tend to use ACMI EEE guidelines, where there is a focus on cybersecurity and security as such, as the concepts that need to be taught to any computing student. So when we design a curriculum, we actually focus on competencies, and that, I think, kind of answers your question about theories and practice kind of a thing, because competency is based on knowledge, skills, and disposition. So what is knowledge? Knowledge is the know what. So that's the theories that people will be exposed to. Skills is the, rather I should say, skills are more like the know-how, the practical applications of the things at hand that need to be taught to students. And the disposition is the know why, which is harder for students to grasp, but it is often incidences like this which actually make the disposition easier to get across to the students. Now, as I said, it's not something new. So we often have courses, and not that often, we do have courses in our curriculum which focus on information security and assurance. So, there may be some targeted courses which are focusing on this, but you also need to be mindful of the fact that security doesn't occur in vacuum. It's across, there are multiple layers of security that students need to be exposed to. So it is the flavor of this will be taught in several of the courses. For example, there's a networking course in our second year where the students learn about the public key cryptography and some of the theoretical and the practical concepts around that. A web development course, students may learn about web security attacks and how to defend against them. I know there is a course called, computer systems, which is more about where students learn about setting permissions to ensure that the right, and you understand the whole landscape of how you go about setting permissions so that the right owners have access to the systems. And then, of course, the more focused courses will focus upon, both the theory and the practical aspects of writing firewall rules, performing some real-world security tasks. And I think what becomes important to us after this last, last month, the incidences that have happened, is to really examine our curriculum again to see if there are any gaps in it, because this provides us with an opportunity to really go and see that what we are doing as coverage in our curriculum, is it really sufficient? And is that what is really needed and for Jamaica just now? We also, this is at the undergrad level I was talking, even after all this happened, there was conversation around what are the tertiary institutions offering. And even as we are preparing for the data protection officer, I realized that they probably need to be reskilled in the learning about encryption and various things that will become basic tools for how they do their jobs. So in our postgrad, we have certain courses, we have courses like topics in computer security, security and online social networks, which is so relevant in this day and age. And of course, a very strong technical course where they do a lot and they learn concepts, which is something called cryptography. So that's in summary, that is what UV has on ground just now, where it relates to cybersecurity at undergrad and postgrad levels.
Awesome. Well, I think Dr. Mansingh showed the power of security going horizontal across many programs at the University of the West Indies. Here at the Caribbean Maritime University, we have most of our security courses under the Center for Counterterrorism and Security. And we have a couple of degree programs under there. We do have a BSc in cybersecurity and digital forensics, so you can take that and get that degree. We also have a BSc just in forensic sciences, and another one in security administration and management. So it shows the importance of security to our industry, which is the maritime sector. And we're going to see more and more actually of these attacks happening. And I know in mission critical industries like the maritime sector, we are looking to add more courses that are looking at different systems and how we are going to be supporting security administration, cybersecurity, and forensic analysis on those particular systems. So we are in one faculty, which is the Faculty for Counterterrorism and Security, and we have 3 degree programs at the BSc level at the Caribbean Maritime University.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for that. So, Sean, over to you about UTech.
All right. A pleasant good afternoon again, colleagues, and a pleasant good afternoon for all of those who are in Zoom land. It is very good to have a discussion like this, and I'm really happy to hear that all the institutions actually do have some level of focus of cybersecurity in their curriculum. The University of Technology, Jamaica, since 2003, with the School of Computing, have been offering computer security as courses, not only to our students, but to the general public. We traditionally train over 200 graduates to take that core course in computer security, which is a highly hands-on course, which teach students, and traditionally we teach students how to simulate various types of defense scenarios, cyber defense scenarios to protect the organization. And we have had great uptake in the local industry. But one of the perspective I want to share quickly before I elaborate more on the content of our program is that I don't think we are sufficiently providing the needs of the market, because I produce 200 graduates and I recognize that there's still a huge gap in terms of the skill level that is required. I mean, internationally, if we do some empirical analysis of the data, you have over 2 million jobs, 2.3 million jobs that are still unfilled in the cybersecurity space globally, such that we have companies outside of Jamaica looking to recruit talent locally to even fill jobs in the US and elsewhere. With that said, however, what I can share with you as a public note is that we too have realized that over the decade that as security is a changing field on a yearly basis, we have actually had to upgrade our curriculum in various formats. So in addition to providing core courses in computer security, network security, and at the graduate level, we have an enterprise security track for students who are managers or who seek to be managers of those type of outfits, and they do have high traction in terms of the uptake. We had moved in 2018, 2019 to offer a full degree now in cybersecurity and virtualization systems, where we look at the critical infrastructure of large-scale networks, cyber physical systems they support, and we have a full uptake as of 2018-19. We have over 300 students now coming up into that program across its third year of offering. So with that said, we believe that we have been catering to the market in a significant way, but I think the need of the market is greater than we have been supplying. And UTech as one institution supplies the market, but I think even as a collective whole across all institutions in Jamaica and the Caribbean, we still have not yet met the demand, because how we have deliberately offered our courses of study, we are also making them available as credential stackable courses. So as you can have people from private sector with particular needs who would come in and say they want to learn about AWS, just like how you'd have the JamCOVID app running on Amazon Cloud. They want to learn about AWS, so they can come and take a short course in that, and just to understand the infrastructure of that, and then be able to go back to the workplace and use it as lifelong credits or continuing professional development credits to support the job space. I think we have a huge opportunity and we have a huge task to fill the need of the market. Security is no longer just a specialization for one part of any industry. Every single component of every industry, every small business, every large business, and even private use requires security. So in other words, it's now a national and global need, and hence the training needs have to step up in a big way to meet the needs of the market. I want to put that on the table, and I will pick up on it as we allow persons around the table here to continue. But that's just my opening point on.
All right, so good evening again. It's a pleasure being here. And I would ditto what was said by Dr. Mansingh in the context of the horizontal application of security-based courses. So at the Northern Caribbean University, we do not have a full-blown bachelor's program in cybersecurity. However, we give our students opportunities to form what we call concentrations in the information security domain. So for example, students are exposed to courses such as fundamentals of security technologies, security policy and auditing, data security and security vulnerabilities and attack prevention. And for example, in our systems analysis class, our software engineering class, and even our foundations of information systems class, we have tried to infuse different aspects of security in those courses. About 2 or so years ago, when the media was replete with different incidents of hacking in different public sector units and even private sector units, we came up with a cybersecurity certificate program, which basically would entail a 1-year study doing 5 courses in cybersecurity essentials, information assurance, cyber crimes and policies, intrusion analysis, and ethical hacking and network defense. What we have tried to do outside of the ACM and the IEEE, we have tried to align our programs with industry certifications, such as those offered by CompTIA, for example, CompTIA Security Plus, or the Certified Ethical Hacker aligned to our security vulnerabilities and attack prevention course. So that allows for a level of currency when it comes to our programs, because each year these outlines are updated, and we try to keep our students on the cutting edge in terms of that. As it relates to the practical experience, yes, the students are exposed to the theoretical concepts. What we have tried to do with one of our partners, international partners, we have tried to provide the students with these sandbox or simulated environments where they can actually practice some of these tasks or activities so that they can be well equipped. Mind you, I think it would be better if we have more internship opportunities in that domain, giving students the exposure, going on a real job and trying to put up a defense or configuring routers, configuring switches, configuring firewalls, all of those. And the last thing I want to mention as it relates to our curriculum, we all would have seen the thrust of the government and the world in general to become what they have classified as a fully digital society. So it means that from our vantage point, there will be this greater focus for security experts. So therefore, it might require, I've heard UTech mention their cybersecurity program. It might require us having different flavors of these cybersecurity degree programs, or having more deliberate attempts made to infuse security across the curriculum. For example, in Introduction to Programming, we always talk about security by design and privacy by design. What if we start to introduce that from Introduction to Programming, when the students are just getting their hands or their hands wet in that particular area? And one thing I know that we probably need to have more of this in our curriculum is the role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, especially in the context of machine learning, deep learning. How do you understand different cybersecurity threats and risks, etc.? So overall, we have tried to prepare our students in this domain, but definitely we have room for improvement.
All right, no, thank you for that. I actually had a couple of points that I wanted to pick up on based on what each of you said. I really love what you said, Dr. Mansingh, when you talked about the know what, the know how, and the know why. And I think the know why is very clear now, right? We had a solid experience. We're still in it, right? I mean, the article, the TechCrunch official article just went live, a couple of days ago, right? So know why is very, very clear. And I think because of that know why being in the space locally, because I mean, threats have been happening for a minute, right? But when it hits home, when it's yours, just like when COVID got here, it's a whole different experience versus when you're just hearing about it, right? So now that we've had the know why really land for us, and going back to what Sean was saying in terms of whether or not our programs that we have, because I mean, that was even just hearing about the way that you guys describe the different programs was edifying for me. I wasn't aware that there were so many options available. And also when Damion was talking about offering certifications or looking at the way they certify in alignment with the industry standard certifications, which, that's something that a lot of the companies that are looking to hire, they look for those certifications, right? And so when I think about what you said, now we have the know why, so there is probably a greater demand, or maybe even if the demand is not as evident, there is a palpable conversation that's happening, and there are concerns. So there's probable maybe concerns around whether or not companies and even individuals in some instances are well equipped from a professional perspective, a tech professional perspective. And based on what Sean said he didn't think so, right? That we don't have enough supply coming out to meet the demand. So I wanted to know from your seat, Dr. Mansingh, and from your seat, Erica, based on the cohorts that you have coming out, do you feel there are enough graduates that are focusing on this area to meet the now palpable, what will eventually become a palpable demand? Yeah.
So I'll go first in the same order that you had gone last time, Stacey. I don't know what the demand is, and I think we need to understand, this is a great opportunity for at least all the institutions to come together as we are having this conversation today, to even hear and see what the other one is doing, because I don't think we don't have that. We don't know what is in our landscape. I think what we have is our numbers graduating. And even in our numbers graduating, I can tell you my numbers. We graduate about an approximately 80 to 100 students every year, be it in computer science, IT, or software engineering, any of these three disciplines. And several of them, I also know, go away for their, the postgrad studies, and they also go away because they don't find the landscape here very exciting. So the question we also need to ask is, how do we ensure that our landscape is becoming more exciting? And how do we keep our graduates here also? That's one question too, because I know that several go away. So are we asking I don't know whether we are, doing enough for the industry, but we also need to understand, how do we evolve the industry? Are we paying our graduates enough? Because now we have a better understanding of someone who's really a certified security professional, someone who has a degree in computing disciplines, be it computer science, IT, or software engineering. Are we really, so is there value for talent in the country? And with all that in place, how are we growing the entire sector? And I think academia, industry, all need to come together in making this happen.
Yeah, I would add to that we have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us now. We have been in the pandemic and a disruption period now, which actually was forecasted for some time. We've been in a disruption around the world, but COVID-19 has really brought it to the forefront for all of us. I think coming out of this disruption, which some say maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, we may be just coming down off of our COVID cycle, we should be using this time now to plan a strategy on how we are going to pivot our country. We have to be very strategic about what we're doing because we're small and we don't have a lot of resources, right? I've often thought that we need to be very targeted in a couple of areas. We know we have a huge problem in our energy sector. So we need to see how we can become greener and become a lot more efficient. We have food shortage problems that are coming up. So we need to see how we can get more people focused in those areas. Those two areas I talked about are really strategic areas for any country, and we're going to need a lot of security professionals around those areas if we intend to focus on them, right? Can't have any disruption in our energy supply, and certainly can't have any disruption in our food supply. But I agree with probably what everybody's going to say on this call, that we do need to collaborate a lot closer. We're offering some of the same degree programs. Some of them are newer, some of them are older, and that's fine. We can do that. It's good to have some variety in what we're offering, but we have to be very strategic and systematic about how we're going to work together. And I also believe that we have to democratize this a lot more, right? We're talking at a tertiary education level, but we have to figure out how we get this talk into the secondary school level so that we can get more interested people in this area, right? Because, you might have a perception that this is an area that is a complicated area, a hard area. And I would say that there's probably a wide variety of areas that you can go into cybersecurity. And it's not just even cybersecurity, it's security in general. We're talking about computer systems here, but when I worked in a large multinational, it was about people security and making sure that we could keep people secure, because they're always under attack. People are always trying to get information from you. They are always trying to get information from you to undermine systems. And so it's that whole bigger picture about security management. How do we protect our buildings? How do we protect our data? How do we protect our systems that we're going to be using for our computer systems that house mission critical information, such as our health information? So we have to develop a sort of security culture here, and it is going to go horizontal. I do know that there should be, if there's not, there should be a demand for security professionals in every company. Every company should be looking at how you secure your assets, people, your computer systems, buildings. So I think there is going to be a growth for this profession in the future. And I encourage all of us here on the call to figure out how we're going to pivot our country outside of COVID, how we're going to focus on those things that are very important to our development. Because frankly, I want to jump on what Dr. Mansingh said. Our salaries here for people that work in Jamaica are kind of disgusting, if I want to say that, if that's a proper word. I don't mean to be very disrespectful or anything, but you're not going to keep these people here to build our nation if we don't figure out a way to move our economy up, move our salaries up, whether that means we go with a strategy that we're attracting business from outside and we're bringing the high paid jobs to Jamaica so that we can keep the people here. We have to be frank with ourselves about our whole society, and it's time for a level up. I'm ready for the level up, and COVID-19 was a shock in the face for us, and we need to pay attention to this right now.
Okay, excellent points there, Erica. I would like to ask you if you could just weigh in on, and you can type it in the chat or even in the Q&A. There was a question specifically about the number of cohorts that come out, the number of persons that come out in a cohort. So that would be great if you could toss that in there as well for CMU. Damion, I'm going to toss over to you, and then I'm going to bring it back around to Sean, as the discussion really was based on a point that he put on the table.
All right, so listening to Dr. Mansingh and also Erica, I think one of the major challenges right now is really understanding where the gaps are, understanding where are the deficits, understanding what are the needs of the industry. And I believe that going forward, there has to be some repository where, as universities, we can be kept abreast of what are the exact needs, so that, as Erica used the word pivot, we need to be able to be agile, be adaptable with the needs and the demands of the industry. And I don't think we can actually keep most of the bright minds in security and IT in general with the salary standpoint. I saw someone shared a job to work remotely to do just front-end development, 70,000 US per year. And I'm like, wow, I could probably take that job. But the point is, compared to what obtains in Jamaica, I mean, if somebody knows they're getting 70,000 US to work remotely, they're probably going to go to that job. So I concur that a lot needs to be done in that regard as we seek to expand our offerings and also to address the immediate needs within the context of the industries.
Okay, thanks for that, Damion. And if you could also speak to the size of the cohort that is that's coming out, that would be great. Okay,
so as mentioned earlier, we do not have a full-blown program in cybersecurity, but in general, on average, I'll say 40 students are graduated in the August conferral, because we have 3 conferrals in the August conferral. And if I were to look at the statistics, probably about 40% of those students are placed in their preferred jobs. But I want to also point out that most times when companies are asking for jobs, I have never really heard them say, can you give me a cybersecurity specialist? They want web developers, mobile developers, software engineer, database administrators. So it means that even though we're here talking about the need for cybersecurity specialists, is that something that the industry is really demanding at this time. I heard Dr. Thorpe mention that he's putting out over 200, and it seems that he's still unable to supply the demand. But is that a demand that we are all aware of? Because I've not really been asked for those types of jobs. So
all right, so let me jump back in now. The nature of the jobs that we have, how Jamaica treats the cybersecurity or the computing field, full stop, is that everybody is the jack of all trades. You know, everybody does everything when you are hired. If you were in Europe or in the US, you have to divide and conquer based on the hiring needs. We have very few companies in Jamaica that hire security specific, you know, and they are JCS companies. You know, you have like a Simtai or T-Tech. And by the way, they come and they grab very fast all the graduates that we can provide in computer security. But with that said, I think among us here, my last look at the empirical data, we produce to the local Jamaican market over 400, about 400 graduates, with UTech probably carrying a larger portion of that pool, nearly 50 to 60% of that pool. And why I say that we are not providing the needs of the market in the way we would like to, because as the pandemic you know, presents itself, and as we have to move to more digital solutions to sustain businesses, let's not play lip service to the reality. Jamaican businesses have never really spent the time putting security at the as a part of its front-end expenditure for systems. We are very reactive as a country in terms of how we spend on security, but we need the skills, and we'll hire, and we'll probably pay them for cheap. So you are right. When you talk about, you know, when they graduate, what they will do as opportunities, they migrate. So I can tell you, when we start looking at our tracer study type data, you're going to find that probably only about 15% of those larger graduation classes stay in Jamaica. Many of my students are at Microsoft, Google, and other places taking jobs there because we have not put a value proposition in place to support them staying here. And that foreign direct investment of which you speak, it is now catching up on us. We need the talent to maintain our ecosystem for the future, but we're not paying them because we don't see the value of how we should be paying them. I think the big question then is that the budgets of government can be, you know, done in such a way that, well, probably you can't pay them the US salaries or the Canadian or the you know, the salaries of other countries. But I tell you what, a larger opportunity presents itself to run incubators and internship feeder programs for these graduates. As UTech, we have, you know, put in place a large-scale internship program that when students, not only in security, but in other spaces, want to feed into the job market, we actually have that partnership going. As a matter of fact, we even go further. We do our own incubation for internship projects and run our own projects in specialized labs. So we don't only send to the market for them to hire, but we are also running specialized incubators where we hire students internally to work on projects for the market, and they become highly valuable resources at the end, that when they go to the job market, I will have the likes of a Simtai or a T-Tech and all these other, and an NCB and all of them starting to pay top dollar in the local space, probably $5, $6, $7 million for the graduates. And they know that they probably still value a lot more than that. So the value proposition of the market is based on how we align the training outcomes to meet the needs of the industry and let the industry know that, listen, you're getting top value talent to support the local sector. Pay them. If you don't pay them, they're going to go on a flight, COVID or no COVID. And they have been doing it for over the decades. I wrote a book about this, you know, in 2018, you know, about the whole Caribbean Silicon Valley, the flight of our technical capital. So therefore, it's not anything new. I think what we have to focus on is to keep building out the infrastructure with the human capacity that will support the institutional sustainability for the market. If we don't do that, we're going to have a problem. Start training not only in the university, but from the high schools and the colleges, the whole mindset of cybersecurity as being something very needed and necessary to just support your ecosystem, both from the perspective of the apps that you are going to be putting out there, and as Damion said, security by design or privacy by design, but you want to also make sure that they understand policies and so on from an earlier age, so that when they come to the university, they spend more time teaching them how to manage and starting up companies that can drive the larger ecosystem. I put it on the table to you. Right now, if we as a local industry decide that we wanted to take software quality and we go to the likes of Boeing, which was here in the 1990s, and we said to Boeing, who had a lot of problems with their aircraft the other day, and said, come to Jamaica right now. We will support the cybersecurity needs of the Boeing going back into the larger world market as a foreign direct investment. If we put our heads together, we could push an entire talent pool or pipeline to meet the needs of that market and still need more people. So I'm really saying this to say that we are sitting on a golden egg. We're sitting on a golden egg, and I could be granular about all the skill sets and the security stack of skills that we need to supply the market. If all of us together went out there and we only trained in cybersecurity alone, we still couldn't supply the market, especially if we're doing innovative things with the security and putting them out there so that when people finish, you have not only local companies wanting to hire them, but overseas companies. Every day I get told from companies abroad that are hiring in cybersecurity and other spaces, of course, in computing field. And they are looking to recruit them right now, even in COVID. So I'm saying that we're sitting on a gold mine, and I think the universities can help with the upskilling by actually making sure that the graduates are work ready by putting incubators into your programs, and don't just wait on the private sector to take them on, because some of the private sector companies don't have a clue either as how to upskill that security talent. So I think it is an opportunity for us in the academia to do the full 360 degree, not just to give them the degree and put them out there, but also put them into work, right? And let them be also innovators and then start their own companies. That's the game. That's the game plan, I see.
All right, great points there, Dr. Thorpe. And I'm just gonna speak to the questions that were in the chat that have been answered, I think, that based on the conversation. So, so John Brown, who says he's a computing student, finds it difficult to gain real world experience from companies in Jamaica, and even more so now with the pandemic. What can an average computing student do to gain job relevant skills? And I believe you spoke to that in putting out the call for the universities to possibly look at having incubators inside of the programs themselves, similar to the model that UTech has taken on and has seen success in. Another question that we got was around if you knew, and this was for Dr. Thorpe specifically, how many of the 200 graduates are working in Jamaica and specifically, if you had any visibility into those statistics. Now, I think I recall you saying about 20% of the graduates get work overseas, but I'm not sure if you have any sense of what the percentages that go into the SIMTIs and TTECs and NCBs. I don't know if you have any numbers on that.
Oh, well, all right. So what I would say is you have only a small, well, you see, those companies are small relative to the size of larger companies. Right. I would argue that, you know, just for the security market alone, you will have probably only about 5% or to 7% of them staying in Jamaica, and the likes of TTEC and SIMTA and other companies grab them up. They even take staff too, if necessary. That's how important the demand for the market is. They don't just take students. You see, Stacey's laughing. They don't just take students, they take staff too. That is how valuable the proposition is, as it relates to where the needs are in the market. And what I'm saying, I'm seeing it as a real opportunity to say, well, okay, let's build an ecosystem. And I would put it to what Dr. Mansingh had put forward. I would now say, the four of us and any other institutions that are on the island, let us put our heads together to build an ecosystem to say, let's put to the government, we will support software quality and testing. Bring Boeing down here, bring them down here, and let us put our students from first to fourth year in those programs to go build out some of those quality assurance systems that they need. That is a stand I'm willing to take. That's something I think all of us collectively together could do, in such a way that it makes sense that when the students are finished, so if you have students in this call right now asking about jobs, I thought about that as well. They wouldn't be worrying about jobs, especially if they wanted to get into the cybersecurity field and any other field, as a matter of fact. We would be pipelining them into those opportunities, and by the same token, we would maintain in our environment within the universities and colleges hubs of excellence that can also hire some of the talent. UTEP, we have a technology innovation center where you have some of the youngsters that don't want to go and work for any large or blue chip company. They start up, they build out, and then they offer their own services, which is where we really need to be recognizing that when we train and allow students to upskill to leave the university, we're not just allowing them to leave to go and do a job for another company. We're training them to also start their own and let them be independent thought leaders by themselves. So it's a really great time, actually. The pandemic is actually introducing some new opportunities here. I don't know if we see it is something that we can grab with both hands. And collectively, we put students and graduates into projects to work here and then earn the foreign dollars. And then we won't see so much of the brain drain, but I'm really an evangelist for taking radical decisions.
So I want to actually toss an angle of that conversation over to Erica and ask about R&D funding or R&D benefits, because I know that CMU has really been able to capitalize on that to leverage that quite a bit. And one of the questions that came out of the salary discussion, because when you talk about people worrying about jobs, and I sit in that seat of having to look at persons coming out of school and seeing what is being offered here, having lived away for the majority of my adult life and trying to navigate how I even have the conversation, right? Based on what they could actually be earning, even if they don't get paid the same, but you can literally pay double and still in many instances make more than what you'd be earning. So how do we get some of the benefits? Because I think part of what happens inside of organizations, local organizations, is that they are spending so much money on technology and tech resources and just trying to run the business, right? They don't get to have access to, let's say, R&D, which would then allow them to pay more to employees. So is this something that is even in your wheelhouse, Erica, in terms of how you look at persons navigating out of CMU and how CMU has been able to leverage R&D funding?
So I think the universities have to look at research and development as a growth area for funding the university. I mean, we have great examples of this model already working. In Silicon Valley, for example, Stanford and UC Berkeley, these R&D labs, and they bring the students in to work with the professors, to work on real world problems. And those particular projects become startups or spin-offs that can benefit both the university and benefit the people that are involved. I think we need to be looking more at those models on how we really develop a world-class research and development environment and ecosystem. I know we have that competence in some of the universities already, but we really need to spread that out and then to work as a system. I know, for example, when we look at Silicon Valley and the number of universities that are located in that particular geographic area, you'll find that they work collaboratively on research on development projects that are given by, say, the government, the Department of Defense in the United States. So there is an opportunity, I think here in the region, in Jamaica, in the Caribbean even, for a greater collaboration around a systematic research and development strategy that will allow us to not only bring in money to our university so that we can continue to do some of that innovative research You know, that's some of the funding that we need to be able to go to the places that we haven't gone before. And we need to greater collaborate together so that our research and development reach can be a lot bigger, and it can be a lot broader and a lot deeper. So I am certainly, you know, cheerleading for everything Dr. Thorpe is saying about the opportunity being here right now. Research and development is a big opportunity for us because we have the transformation coming, right? We're in the middle of the transformation, and there's going to be new ways of doing things, new solutions that's going to come about from these new technologies that are being introduced all along our industry sector, vertically and horizontally. So you're right, Stacey, there is a big opportunity for us to get a research and development project from, say, a Boeing, for example, that would pay us to come up with a solution collaboratively on an island for their QA problem or for any software issue that they may be looking at in the future. But I've moved back for the last 2 years, and what I've seen is just a dilution of our force here in the region and in Jamaica, because we are sort of doing too much at the same time and having probably not as big of impact as we could if we came together and focusing on some specific areas, like Dr. Thorpe said, in cybersecurity. I also think artificial intelligence, like that Damion mentioned earlier, is a target area. Just because of the exponential effect of that technology going horizontal across everything that we're doing. So we need to pick some areas and focus there on research and development.
Okay, thank you for that. I did want to ask Dr. Mansingh to weigh in on another question that was asked in terms of IT governance. And I think it actually goes back to a conversation that came out of the space relating to JamCOVID, because we do feel that there is certainly IT governance being missing at the government level in terms of how we're managing our digital transformation. And that, of course, is tied to leadership and tied to how we view governance as a whole, right? So in the space of IT governance, is this something that universities are training students in?
Stacey, just to speak about, before IT governance, research and, those aspects are very critical, but our government really doesn't have research funding as such for, for postgrad research. We don't have that capability. There's no research funds which will, manage the tertiary institutions. So we need to look into that too. Now, about IT governance, in computing, there are many disciplines. And as I would say, computing is an umbrella term. So there is computer science, IT, software engineering, computer engineering, which all of us, recognize very easily. And there is also information systems, which is technology in organizations, which I think tends to be the weakest link. And that's where I think the IT governance would come in. For example, I would think that even the strategy of software solutions that are insourced or outsourced, for example, what JamCOVID App, how do they get integrated into the Jamaican ecosystem? How do they become part of the government of Jamaica ecosystem? I think we are lacking in strategies for that itself. So that is something I think we need to focus on. And I'm starting the ball rolling in, from the few other hats that I wear. I'm starting that conversation going that, because you don't know if whatever is developed and if it's even for a cost or what, it could be a Trojan, it could be a virus, you don't even know, it could be a spyware. And hence you have to be careful when you integrate things into, be it an organization or be it the government digital ecosystem. So yes, absolutely. IT governance, data governance, these are very, very important aspects, which you need people who understand business and technology to be having that conversation, which is often lacking in our ecosystem. Another thing, I think, the whole notion of JamCOVID, what has it really done for Jamaica? I think there are many positives if we can just look at that. the positive that I see is it has become a, case study, and local context is just so important. I remember when I used to teach data mining, machine learning 20 years ago, and students were like, Miss, when are we going to use it? And that whole notion that, whether you're going to have things which are going to happen in Jamaica, that conversation, you don't even need to have it. Everybody is glued on to that conversation. A few weeks ago at the university, we had a panel discussion on the Cyber Crimes Act and, the whole notion of ethical hacking, bug bounties in Jamaican Cyber Crimes Act. And how it is worded, it actually makes, ethical hacking, it makes it makes like a wrong for someone to do even ethical hacking. Now, one thing to understand is that this notion of security, it's a dynamic landscape. And I think there was a questions in one of the chats which spoke about, we are producing them for the global world. And we have to be very mindful of that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. We are faced with this dynamic technology, and hence with the dynamic technology, we have these, changing landscape of threats. So when we are looking at education, we have to be, as a decision maker, we have to be very, mindful of the fact that there has to be strategic and tactical decision making. Strategic decision making, we have to focus on that. Are we producing security professionals for future, not for today? Because we need to make sure that they can also evolve with the landscape. And then, of course, in the skills training, are we training them for today? Are they learning the tools that are in use today? So we have to find that balance. So as we look in our organizations, in our government, to just look at IT governance, data governance, and we look at, how this whole notion gets taught. You hear about various institutions that come into play, whether there is an academy here or an academy there. I think everybody needs to understand the entire landscape. And in the landscape, we then need to figure out what is the role for each of those persons. And I think we are often doing things without understanding the entire landscape. And that's where we go wrong in Jamaica.
No, that's really good. Actually, I'll pick up on the point about academy here and there, because that's one of my little soapbox areas. But particularly, you actually talked about one of the comments. It was more of a comment than a question that was in the chat, where it was said that we should be upskilling or educating for the global need versus the market need. But I really want to make it very clear that part of the challenge that was experienced back in, 60s, 70s, where brain drain was really being felt, is that if we are not securing home, then we're going to have a problem. There won't be anybody to be graduating out of schools, because we're going to have challenges with maintaining and sustaining our own economy. So we'll lack economic stability, which is why we have to be able to do both. We have to be able to create persons who can supply the needs, provide the needs of the market, as well as meet the needs that we have locally. Now, to your point, we are small, and if we have millions of jobs that are out there, even in this specific area, we have millions of jobs, and we are, as a country, let's say, putting out annually 500 graduates, 500 a year to satisfy both local and global demand is really not enough. And so what we have to do is get strategic, as you both have been saying, Dr. Mansingh and Erica, get strategic and really think about where exactly, what do we want to be known for? What do we want to make sure that we're making a dent in? Where do we want to be moving that needle, right? Now, what I want to now move over to, which was one of the questions I had actually put forward to my panelists, was about this conversation of academies, right? So when you talk about the landscape, right, there's been a lot of discussion around coding. And once there was the issue with JamCOVID, and it was, oh, we need to now have a cyber academy. So do we need a cyber academy or a coding academy or AI academy? Like, is that what we're going to do to satisfy the need? Or are we going to take on a more holistic kind of approach? And Damion, I'll start with you, and then we can have Sean weigh in, and then come back to Erica and Dr. Mansingh.
All right, thank you very much. That's an interesting question about the Cyber Academy. Now, I did a quick scan before coming on, and I looked at the US model. And what I found, you have some top universities who would say specialize, in this case, cybersecurity. And the government will now fund these institutions, and they will now prepare graduates to fill whatever necessary gaps are there in terms of the demand for cybersecurity specialists, etc. Now, what I would suggest in terms of even in the Jamaican context is not to create a cybersecurity academy, but what would be necessary at this time is for the government and even the private sector to fund the universities to help them to build all the necessary infrastructure, the human resources, so that we can train the brightest minds in this area. And so we will be better able now to fill the gaps that are there. So in terms of the Cyber Academy, I would say, no, equip the university, fund the university, develop the university. We already have programs. So it's almost like we'll be reinventing the wheels if we were to actually go that route. So let us retrofit and improve the infrastructures within the universities. And then we now should carry on with the training of these bright minds or these students, as it were.
All right, let me weigh in there. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Being the immediate past president of the JCS, I really had a good window into some of the conversations of our private sector, perceive the academia. And one of the things that I should say, Damion, is the fact that private sector will say to spend money to upskill, they would like a tax incentive from government. And if that tax incentive does not avail itself, these private sector companies, small and medium size, I don't even want to get into large corporates, but yeah, if they don't have a tax break to say fund students moving into those kind of initiatives, you can forget it. We were doing assessments in the past where in Canada, I have noticed they have these special funded programs. Of course, Canada's budget in education to support R&D and so on, to build out these skills was like it's 2 billion Canadian dollars from my last recollection of what they had in their budget. I don't think we have that kind of allocation at all. So when we step back and we, pay attention to these coding academies, you could argue that government, albeit, this one or, in the past, and when they come up with these academies, can remember they started from CIT in the 90s, let's not forget it, There was an academy in the 90s that was earmarked to build out skills. Yes. It could be a case that they do not have complete confidence in the academia to turn over at the fastest pace what they need for the market. And that is why we in the academia have had to be paying attention to the speed at which the curriculum that we are providing and the relevance of such curriculum aligns well with the market, and to keep updating that as may be required. I think you have to look at a root cause analysis as to why in the first place these academies are suggested, and we are already providing in the traditional institutions the curriculum. And the simple answer is a question of whether or not the curriculum that we speak of support currency relating to what the market is asking for. Now, with that said, I will argue that it is fine for the government and private sector to want to have academies. As a matter of fact, what is going on, and I want to pay attention, many business places have now what they call universities. So Digital will have a university, NCB will have a university, and then the question that presents itself, not just only academies, is probably they also want to create their own universities. I think the natural inclination of companies is that the speed of information and the speed at which they need to process information and apply it, it is perceived that the academic institutions do not provide it at that pace. And I'm in the academia and giving myself a knock for that. And then we step back and say, well, okay, what we then probably need to do is within our existing institutions, run academies, which I do, as you said. I have a SAPNA academy, I have all kinds of academies which companies will come to, and they will come to for products, and they will pay us for those products. And I put teams in there to work on the products. And when we finish build the products, same companies will come and say, boy, let me see if I can hire those same people, by the way, who just finished building products to come and work for me, which is a good thing. So I'm saying, I would not worry about the argument of these academies springing up. I wouldn't even make it be a problem. I would simply support and complement what they say they are doing with what we have going on in the academic institution. So everybody have a fair chance of having outcomes. Sometimes, you know, what is being put out in the press and advertised doesn't necessarily go beyond a press release. You give it a couple of months, sometimes nothing is happening. The CIT Academy went on for about a good 2 years and then it wound up. You understand? 2-3 years and then it wound up. It was a very good initiative to get some initial skills out. But its sustainability was not clear. And most of these academies, their sustainability are not clear. So we, the universities and the colleges on the island, who provide mainstay education for decades, is where the hub of these academies should reside. So it's great when government gives us a signal and say, listen, they need a coding academy. We should now look back at ourselves and say, okay, what is the deficit? What is the deficit in our curriculum? They're looking for front-end and back-end stack developers. Okay, are we providing that? Are we using all the necessary and current frameworks that the market is asking for? So that tells us that we need to go and revise the curriculum if those are areas of need for address. And then simply that will help to solve the problem. And then start our own academies that after students finish the core curriculum, they go into your special academies in your institutions and show these private sector and government companies that this is what we are doing. It's a show and tell market. People believe what they see, not what they hear. And that would solve that problem. So I think it's more a hype, to be honest, about the arguments for national academies. I think it's an opportunity to really help to build out those national academies as the core institutions that offer the special skills. And it might work out well for us that projects can come and we can monetize them and help to sustain the academies as options for further training, lifelong training, and employment. Don't forget that part, and employment for many of the graduates and persons wanting to be a part of that student.
So Stacey, I was wondering if I could jump in here, because I have a little bit of a different opinion than Dr. Thorpe and perhaps Mr. Mitchell. Okay, so I believe that we have to democratize information and knowledge, and we have to cast the widest net than we can. And the tertiary institutions, they serve a purpose, right? You spoke about, you know, the corporations starting their own universities. You want to know why they're doing that? Because they would go bankrupt if they had to send all of their people back to the university to get the education that you're charging for in your university. So we have to make sure that we have various levels of access to knowledge and information for people in our society. The tertiary sector only is supplying a small amount of our population. Only a small amount of our population can get into the tertiary sector. But that doesn't mean that they cannot be functioning members of our society, that they can't have a competency in cybersecurity. So I am more of a generalist in that term. I'm a more of a democratizing of knowledge type of person. And I believe that there will be, and there has to be, academies. There has to be places where we're getting short-term certificates. There has to be places where I'm going on a weekend and I'm getting some kind of paper, something that shows that I have a competence in a certain area. So I know why we don't have as many people. I know why the university is a place where we have a certain, you're looking for a certain dimension of student and person in the university, which is not the most welcoming for all members in society. So I would like to challenge us as well as the tertiary sector to see in places like IT or in a narrow focus of IT, how we democratize our knowledge, how we give access to our knowledge at competitive rates and prices that we may not get in the tertiary sector today. So I'm a little bit more broader in that. And I feel like we have to have many levels of education in our society, because not everybody is going to be able to go to the university, unfortunately, for whatever reason, cost, smarts, competence, family scenarios, whatever. So we have to be able to give people as many opportunities to get what they need. Now, I do believe that the universities have a role to play in ensuring we have a level of quality in these programs, but I do believe we have to have all types of programs. And I just wanted to just make one final comment on the Coding Academy. You guys know that we're going through a whole new phase within the technology sector, which we're having low code or no code. So we don't even know whether or not coding as a profession will still stay in its current format moving forward. We have to have a way to be able to move very quickly to whatever the next thing is. And we need to be teaching about no code or low code right now, because that is the strategy that all of the big corporations are using now to create their products, their digital products. So we're going to have a mechanism by which we can evolve very quickly, gain a competence in something, and be able to share that fast. So that would be my just a little bit of the friction there for tonight if we're looking for some explosiveness, Stacey.
Stacey, may I jump in here a little bit too? I think I'm going both where Sean and Erica are going, because I think the subject area and the topic area demands whether you need an academy or whether you need a tertiary institution. For example, if you were to look at an academy for coding versus cybersecurity, right? Now, coding, you can think of coding as front, the soldiers in the front, foot soldiers, and hence you need to get people to understand coding, and you get that excitement and the persons from your secondary levels into the coding academy, but don't expect them to suddenly evolve to become full stack developers. You have to be mindful about what that is about. So if it is just the foot soldiers who are managing a component or a bit and you're just killing them with that, that's fine. Now, the question I would ask, let's take cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity, you cannot teach in vacuum, as I said in the beginning. You need to understand networking. You need to understand application development, be it no code or low code. You need to understand implementation. All these things to understand security with a 360-degree view, you cannot really do it in an academy per se. You would be, again, touching it, like brushing it on all these areas, and you would not be preparing someone who can deal with security, which is a dynamic field. So, the threats are just evolving every day, and hence they say that no system is ever going to be secure. So what subject areas are we looking to build academies? That has to be, there has to be a debate on that before they come up with some kind of a decision on that. And yes, I think there is a need, as Erica said, to democratize this area, this arena, but to do it in a way that what is on ground. I don't think the decision makers are aware of what is on ground just now. And I think that's what Sean was saying, that by understanding what is on ground, and they enable some of the tertiary institutions to actually welcome them or have a conversation in that space would be very useful for Jamaica going forward.
Well, that's excellent points.
I want to say something else. I said bring on the academies and let the academies be feeders to the tertiary institutions eventually. So when the students who go through the academy finish, they will need somewhere else to go, because most of those academies are usually 6-month academies or 1-year academies. The opportunities for those graduates at the end may be low entry jobs in some regards. But what it means is the university now represents, or the colleges now represent, a pipeline for which they can continue to build out their holistic self as it relates to being a professional in the field. So I'm supporting the argument that the academies are not a threat in any way to the academic institutions. They complement and augment, and they send signals about what the private sector or public sector organizations would like from us, and we may not have actually heard what they were saying. That is my honest interpretation of those type of signals going out there.
Just one follow-up question that I have for the three of you, because it actually speaks to NCU offering the certifications, which was mentioned earlier by Damion. But are the other universities offering the certifications like the ones that are sought after by employers? So when you're
yes, very yes. We offer all of the certifications from Oracle to Fortinet to Cisco, and we have to be looking at those vendors. Most of these are vendor-specific initiatives, and we spend time ensuring that some of our staff are tooled in the vendor-specific initiatives so that we can, in fact, augment that with the curriculum, so the students have a better value-added experience by the time they complete their 4-year degree, which is what we offer at UTech. And I think UWI has done some of it as well, and I'm not sure about CMU, but it is very important that we do that, that type of input.
Absolutely. Dr. Mansingh, can you weigh in on that?
We have some certifications, and we have Cisco certifications, and our data science program we have designed in such a way that people can take certificates as they deem to upskill themselves. And just after our panel discussion the other day on the bug bounties and ethical hacking, Science for Today panel, we had questions on what do we have for cybersecurity and in our postgrad. And we're looking to see how we can offer certifications within those also, use the courses that we have and offer them as certificates to people who need to upskill themselves. So yes, we are thinking of ways, and maybe JamCOVID has, created that has kicked us in the right direction to make these things happen. Some of these conversations which we weren't having before, we are having now, and hence I look at that's a positive coming out from this. So as institutions, I think we are moving in the right direction. We have to, again, I say we have to merge formal education with certification. We can't go after one or the other. So we have to make sure we're doing that. Otherwise, we will be in trouble. We'll be in a static environment. And then 5 years later, we'll be again saying, where did we go wrong? So we have to be very mindful about that, Stacey.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, guys, so we're up on the end hour to wrap things up. This has been a really riveting discussion, and a lot of points that we can use inside of JTDA to actually support one of the research aspects that we're working on under JamTech Insights, because we are looking at labor skills, technology labor skills, and how that is relating to what we're putting out in our tertiary level institutions as well as other training institutions. And I think that the conversation that we've had here is really going to help to inform that analysis that we are going to be working on. So thank you very much for that, for all the different insights and even just pointing out the things that we need. So just to close out, I'm going to ask for just your final points on, JamCOVID has happened. Dr. Mansingh talked about the opportunities that we have been able to see surface or emerge out of this experience. What would you like for each of our attendees to have as a takeaway from all the different points as it relates specifically to our educational system and what tertiary institutions are doing in that regard? And I'll start. We can just take the same path that we took before with Gunjan going and then Erica. Yeah.
Sure. What I want my attendees to be mindful of is something that I've said again and again, that cybersecurity is a dynamic field. It is ever changing. And if we want to produce cybersecurity professionals for tomorrow's environment, we have to be mindful about it, and hence ensure that, when it's just getting the skills is not enough. You need to really understand the framework and the concept, so that that evolution, when it happens, is happening. Your knowledge is also increasing in that same way. So focus on, just the know what, the know how, and the know why becomes very important for anyone who is learning something in a domain. Over to you, Erica.
Right. I would just like to close to say that JamCOVID was probably what I would call a canary in the coal mine. In the US, they use that term to say that it is really just a signal of what's to come. I think it is signaling that we're in the midst of our transformation. We're in our digital transformation. And as every citizen in Jamaica and in the region, we need to push for the digital transformation of Jamaica and our region, because that's really going to get us to where we need to go. It's going to give us that step change that we need. It will allow us to be able to pay people in this profession in a better way. I think the government has to lead that transformation and has to be out front in the region. In other regions, the private sector driving the transformation. I think the government has to be a catalyst. And once we see that transformation and we implement it fully and push for it, we will start to see the need for more professionals like our cybersecurity professionals as a start. There will be a lot of new professions that will be made in that digital transformation for people all along the spectrum, from the foot soldiers, as Dr. Mansingh would like to talk about, to the people that are doing all of the really amazing interrogation of data and information. So the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, Stacey, we have got to put the gas on demanding the digital transformation of our nation, because this is just a hallmark of what's to come. The JamCOVID is the first, and it certainly will not be the last of these incidents that we will see. And it really is a signal to us that things are changing.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. Dr. Thorpe?
Right. I think JamCOVID has presented a unique opportunity for universities and college students to be doing simulation studies. As a matter of fact, coming out of the fiasco with that, we have been engaged in looking at simulation studies to support government entities as we speak, real time. So, and these are initiatives that allow us to better prepare and train graduates to go out there and be able to provide the frontline defense systems. But I think the opportunity also allows for us as a collective group of trainers and teachers and educators to say, well, okay, here what? We are not only seen in the context of providing theory, but we support theory with practice. And for that, I am suggesting that we can use this forum to make a call on the government to say that we are willing to actually start putting forward a need to support, quality assurance systems in Jamaica, invite foreign direct investments, and let us demonstrate as a proof of concept that our graduates can be working local and living global in this pandemic to support the needs of the market. I think that's a unique opportunity. And I wouldn't want to leave the forum and not say that the data that the government has provided us in its budget debate recently, that it is putting $1 billion into cybersecurity. We in the academia, just like the private sector, I'm calling for both of us together to have a private-public sector partnership to find out how that $1 billion is to be spent. And where some of the concerns raised here about, funding some of the initiatives that we think the academia could provide for innovation purposes, we can draw down on those monies in a timely way to help our human capacity development. That's the business we are in, human capacity development. And it should not be a case where we are reacting only to when things are, giving this uptick to the nation, but we should be taking advantage of what resources we have in terms of the people, putting them to work, giving them a good chance to build out careers for themselves, and not just to support domestic market sectors, but to also support a growing foreign direct investment of opportunities on international markets as this small island of Jamaica. So I think it's a unique time. The pandemic provides us with a great opportunity. We need to leverage it. And the opportunity through JTDA, JCS, as we would have actually said, and all the other institutions that are here, is to take this forward to government and say, listen, let us talk and let us act and let us start doing the work to get the talent you want into the market.
Well, I guess after that has been said, I could just do the benediction. But in terms of COVID-19 and the worldwide shift that we have seen because of this, the same thing now obtains with JamCOVID. And we have seen a shift. More persons are talking about security, even persons who were not even aware of the notion of password and biometrics. You hear these persons now talking about these things. So as was mentioned earlier, the positives that have been derived, they are just so tremendous. But even in the context of our own students, you'd have taught things about encryption, ensure that your passwords are encrypted. You'd have talked about strong passwords. Now, when you have issues like this, you can bring to the forefront, hey, what we have been saying to you all these years or all these semesters, you see why it makes sense? So it has even caused us now to be able to apply these, using this issue to further amplify the importance of what the academic stream would have been presenting to our students. And one thing I would want to say is the importance of partnership. I heard it coming out from the discussions that what if we were collaborating even as universities, even if it's just for research and development, that augurs well for the future of Jamaica and the product that we're putting out there. So I just want to encourage all those who are on this webinar that together we can actually do great things from the academic standpoint, from the governmental standpoint, from the private sector. If that marriage takes place, I know that the many challenges that are on the horizon, we can actually bypass them. Yes, we heard about needs, we have heard about ends, we have heard about digital currency. So therefore, cybersecurity will be an increasingly critical topic. And as academic institutions, let us be agile, let us be adaptable, and let us move forward as we seek to educate, to equip, and to create the next great cybersecurity specialists, etc. Thank you.
One plug, Chair, that I want to add. There's a proposal on the table, and I think I've contacted all the academia here so far as that we are seeking to put together something called the Caribbean Association of Professors, where that particular platform would be used to not support just domestic, but regional interactions relating to initiatives that the academia can provide as forms of innovation to private sector, public sector. It is something that is currently being birthed, and after this Friday, it will be shared with all the academic institutions as a new initiative where all the institutions, professors from across the region, not just Jamaica, because the challenge we have here is not just limited to Jamaica, by the way. So I think it's going to be an opportunity, and I will share more with those developments as they unfold. It's a new initiative, and we think it is something that might be timely to get Caribbean participation and not just local participation. But as a team in the Caribbean, we work better together if we put heads to solve problems. So I just wanted to put that plug. I defer. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Your contributions have been really just like priceless this evening. And I'm looking forward to see what unfolds with your collaboration and what Sean just mentioned. Now that's happening across the region. I think even last week we had something similar that came out of the discussion with the international experts that we think we need to actually do more work together as a region. And Jamaica can spearhead that, right? So
Yes.
we're actively looking at how we can take a CARICOM approach, because we
Yes.
are all sharing a similar challenge, you know,
That's
on
true.
multiple levels, right? So this is I think is great news, Sean, that the academia are taking a step towards that, and we can certainly work together to see how we can expand that view so that we can make a collective impact. I just want to remind those persons who are on that next week, we're actually going to be diving into the legal and regulatory side. I know one of the things that kept coming up when we were talking about accountability around JamCOVID was, well, who can we sue, right? People wanted to know whether or not they could sue people, if persons were going to have to pay fines, you know, what are the regulatory contexts to this entire discussion? And I think it's going to be even more critical as we take a view of NIDS, as that is coming on stream, and other applications, as Damion said, other applications that are going to continue to come on stream that have a national impact, right? So tune in with us. Make sure you join us next week, guys. And please, I'm also asking that if you have not yet taken our survey, it's a very quick pulse check. Literally, it takes less than 4 minutes to complete. I just dropped the link in the chat for you to just hop on and take this survey, because it will help to inform our lobbying that we're going to take to the government. So we talked a lot about challenging the government in this discussion last week. Challenge the government. Week before that, challenge the government. We need your help in order to be able to do that, right? So please make sure that you click on the link and just quickly fill out the survey so that we can have more insight to provide the government, so that we are supporting them in the shift that they're making. Because the truth is, all of us need help. The government needs help, tertiary needs help, our organizations need help. And I believe that, as Damion said, we can do so much more together if we have an aligned strategy and if we're focused on and executing towards the same vision. So thanks so much for joining. To all my panelists, Dr. Mansingh, Erica, Dr. Thorpe, Damion, thank you so much for joining. And for all of you that attended and stuck it out with us, have a great evening and see you next week.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
So, bye, everyone.